Hello, everyone. Very excited to be back with you here this week. Jason, we've got, I want to mix things up here a little bit today. I want to do something today that we haven't really done in a while. We've always had kind of a main topic, which we have today too, but there's no plan. This is basically something that I've been concerned about for a very long time. And I would just love to get your input on it, on a problem in our hobby that we might be able to contribute to correcting. Would you like to reveal what that big problem is that we have in this hobby?
It's been an ongoing problem, and it's not a new problem. It's been around for decades, and that is when somebody gets into fish keeping. I heard an industry expert say at one point that the average person getting into fish keeping is gone within 6 months. And that's pretty shocking that is their average lifespan in the hobby before they move on and do something different. And so today we're going to be talking about, well, how can we change that?
Yeah, I call it fish keeper turnover. And I'd like to say none of the information that I'm going to talk about today is from specific studies that have been done, or, here is the proof that this is going on. Everything that we're going to talk about today is me just gauging from what I see in our hobby, from talking to people all over the world, new fish keepers, old fish keepers, the old timers that have been doing it for 30 years. I mean, you and I both, Jason, we talk to a lot of people from all different walks of life. And all that information that I get from talking to people, not to mention thousands of comments on videos every month, is how I got this information. So understand, nothing that I say is backed up by any particular data, but I've always said 85% of this hobby is either brand new or on the verge of quitting. 85% might be a little bit extreme, but where would you put it? Like, do you agree with that? Like, so many people are on the verge of getting out?
Yeah, well, again, if you define brand new as those fish keepers that were only around for 6 months, I consider a brand new fish keeper somebody who's been keeping fish for less than a year. And so that's going to be the vast majority of people coming into the hobby. And yeah, there's a lot of people who are like, man, you know what? We hear it all the time. Again, we go to the aqua shells, we go to the swaps, we go to all these events, and it's amazing how many new people you meet, and then how many people you've met before that you never see again. Yep. And you look at your comments section, I look at mine, and it's fun sometimes. Go back 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and look at the comments of those videos. And the people who are commenting like, oh my gosh, they were like so into fish keeping, and they used to comment on every single video, and then they're gone. And in our realm, like in fish keeping, a lot of people make comments like, oh my gosh, this person has X number of subs and only gets this number of views on a video. Well, you have to remember something. There's a ton of turnover. And so people will get really interested in a hobby, i.e. fish keeping. They'll sub to all these channels, and then 6 months later, they're done. But that sub is still there, but they're not really interested in the content anymore. And so it's a very unique thing that we have going on in fish keeping, I would say.
It's very true, but that there's another side to it too, that it makes it even more unique. And dare I say, it's a problem, because a lot of industry people have molded their business strategy around this. And that is, for everybody that leaves, there's always another one coming right back in. And so you have this never-ending cycle of people coming into the hobby. They're super excited. I don't know anybody that doesn't lose their mind when they become a fish keeper. And I'm not talking about, the rich guy in LA that just gets an aquarium in his living room as a decoration. I'm talking about people that are on social media or whatever, and they see something really cool and they get it, and they get an aquarium because they love it, and they get into this lifestyle. And then again, a year later, sometimes sooner, they burn out and they leave. But there's another group of people that are at that early stage coming right in. And so there's a lot of businesses out there. And I'm just going to say it, like the big box stores, they cater to that person that just came in. They just got exposed to this. They're just getting started, and they're going to end up bailing. A lot of them are. But there's going to be a whole new group coming in right after them. So who cares? You know, we're never going to be without a customer base. I mean, they're always going to be there. So my question to you is, am I a fool for thinking that we can maybe have an impact on that and have it maybe stop it? Because think about it. If we're able to convince 5%, I'm not talking about changing the world. I'm saying if we can convince 5% of those people that are about to leave to stay, how much of an impact would that have on our hobby? I mean, we're talking massive impact that 5% would have, because there's so many people in and out so often. But am I a fool for even bringing this up and thinking about it?
No, and I often wonder how much of an impact social media has already had on keeping people in the hobby for two reasons. One, the community aspect, because I'm going to be real honest. If there was not a community aspect of fish keeping, I would not be nearly as excited about keeping fish. I like it, but it's also the people that, you know, when you go to these events and, you know, when you're doing live streams, you get to interact. And even if I didn't have a YouTube channel, being able to interact in a live stream with other people who like fish, and the forums and stuff like that, although Facebook forums can be pretty toxic at times, but that's a big part of it for me. And so I think that has had an impact, but then also just all the education that has been provided. Now, if you're screwing up in fish keeping, most likely it's because you are not taking the steps to gather the information you need to be successful long-term from people who really know what they're talking about. And so once you have that, I already wonder what kind of an impact that's had on the industry.
Well, I think it's been immense. I mean, I think that not just you and I, you know, we've played a role in it, but everybody on social media, and you know, there's more events now than there were 10 years ago, as far as conventions, festivals that are centered around fish keeping, like Aquashellas and the Aquatic Expo, which is here in North Carolina, stuff like that. But I think that social media has had an immense impact on almost every hobby, whether it's your other hobby of riding motorcycles, mine of woodworking and home renovation, things like that. I mean, if you think about it, you go back like maybe 20 years, hardly anybody was doing work on their own homes. But then the DIY channel came out, and home and garden television came out before social media. And all of a sudden people were exposed and looking, oh, I can do that myself. And so there's so many industries. Fitness industry has been massively impacted by social media. But I would probably say fitness is probably the same thing as what we deal with. So many people set that New Year's resolution. They get into it hardcore. And then 6 months later, they're like, forget it. It's too much work. And they bail out. And so I don't think it's just us, but we feel it the most with fish keeping. Particularly, you and I have talked about this in great length privately, particularly when we see the fall off from the pandemic. Because 2020, 2021, 22, people were desperately looking for something to fill their time when they were sequestered in their homes. And so fish keeping exploded. Mm-hmm. And I remember you saying, you know, it's only a matter of time before those people start bailing out. And boy, were you right. It was particularly the social media side of fish keeping. It just dropped off a cliff.
Yeah.
And it's all those people at that cycle period, that regular turnover time, they start bailing out, and it's tough. So I guess I'm not crazy for wanting to try to do something about it, but I'd love your input. I'd love to ask you, why does it happen? Why? I mean, I don't need you to tell me why people get excited about fish keeping. We all know that, but what is the thing that happens that makes people bail out so often, like so many people do?
So this is where social media can be a detriment, right? So let's say I'm a new person to a hobby, and we're talking about fish keeping. And so you go on the internet and you look at your channel, my channel, all these, you know, the channels that are really out there. And, you know, posting a lot of content and they see a fish room and they see that we're excited about it and all these new fish and all this new stuff. And so they get excited about it. And then they get their first tank and they have some success. And like we hear at the Aquashellas and all these events, then they get tank 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is very common. We hear that all the time. Yeah, I got a Betta tank and now I've got 12 tanks. But then what we started hearing in 22 and 23 is, yeah, I got up to 15 tanks, now I'm back down to 5. I got up to 30 tanks, now I got just 2. And that's not somebody leaving the hobby, but that's somebody dramatically scaling back. And I think one of the main reasons for that is it's really easy to see people who are keeping fish rooms and having a lot of fun breeding fish and doing all this stuff, and then not realizing the amount of work that it takes to actually have a fish tank, much as less a fish room. And they miss the part where I say, hey, guys, I don't maintain all these aquariums. My son does it. I pay him as an employee of Primetime Aquatics LLC to take care of the 30 fish tanks in the fish room and then these 5 behind me. I don't touch these tanks. And I'm going to tell you right now, if and when my youngest son, Eli, he's going to be 18 soon. He's getting close to being done with high school. When this shifts and now this is all on my shoulders, I'm going to have to make some major changes, either a lot of automation or restart bringing some of these tanks down, because I don't have 8 hours, 10 hours a week to be cleaning all those aquariums. And so I think part of that is that. I think part of it is just you see something, it looks really shiny, it's flashy, and then you realize, wait, this is work. And if you're not having success, it can make it even worse.
Yeah, and this is the part where people who have followed my channel are going to say, oh, here we go. Here he goes again. But the other part too is people not knowing what's involved in keeping a healthy aquarium, even to the point where they don't even understand what the aquarium cycle is. And so that will lead to the fish dying. There's big algae blooms in the tank, and all of a sudden this beautiful glass box that the fish look like they're just flying. You can't even see that there's water in it. All of a sudden now is a big sloppy mess, and all the fish are up at the top gasping for air. And it's because they saw a beautiful thing. They tried to recreate that, not understanding the science behind it. And now all of a sudden their fish are dying. They don't understand why. You go on social media, you can immediately get completely overwhelmed with, you and I are on the same page, but a lot of people will have different things to say. And I know, like for me personally, this is going off on a little side note here, but I think it works perfectly for the conversation. I'm in the middle of refinishing my kitchen floors right now. I've been a woodworker almost my entire life. And because this is a project that I'm getting ready to do, I'm excited about it. I'm like, I'm not just going to sit around. I'm going to watch videos of people refinishing floors. And all of a sudden I start seeing, oh, this guy's using that stain and this person's using that. And he's using a mop, but this guy's using a roller. All of a sudden I'm completely overwhelmed and don't know what it is that I should do, when in actuality, this is something I've done so many times. I should be able to do it in my sleep, but now I've completely overcomplicated this because I've seen all these different things that people are saying. I'm not saying that those people's information is wrong. I'm just saying a simple thing like understanding water chemistry and understanding what's happening, it gets overwhelming because there's so many different point of views. And in this hobby in particular, this lifestyle of keeping glass boxes full of water, there is about 3,229 different ways to do one single thing, because it's all so much based on our personal experiences. My water here in North Carolina is very different from yours in Chicago. Everything is different, and what works for one person doesn't work for the next. It's so easy to get completely overwhelmed with the amount of information that's out there.
Really, when you think about it, a lot of this, if you want to keep people in the hobby, it has to fall on the shoulders of the people who are actually selling the tanks. If it were me, if I were Petco and PetSmart, I'm going to use them as examples because they're going to be the ones that they're going to be the stores where people walk in and say, hey, I need a tank, I need the fish. There would be 2 requirements that all customers would have to adhere to. You must know the nitrification process and what that means. So ammonia to nitrite, nitrite to nitrate. We need to understand that before you leave here with this aquarium. And you must understand the quarantine process, because you get those two things right, you solve literally 99% of the problems that new fish keepers have. I would absolutely positively not allow a new fish keeper, to leave without understanding those two concepts. Without that, it's a disaster. Like you said, you got people with fish that are dying, and then you got an ammonia spike coupled with ick. The medications that you're using to treat the ick are causing a bigger ammonia spike. You can't get the cycle established, and it's just this nasty cycle until you wind up with all dead fish. You're like, well, I don't want to go through that again. And sure enough, you just do it again, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But then even if it does work, 3 weeks later, you're like, I'm going to go get some more fish now that it's working, and they wind up with ick, and now you kill all your fish again. So it's like, you got to know quarantine. You have to know the nitrogen cycle. Everything else, you can figure that out.
I agree with you 100%, but I just have to be the devil's advocate here, and I just have to say that will never happen. And it's unfortunate, but it's never going to happen. How many decades have fish been kept in glass boxes, and it's not happening now. It never will. There might be fish stores out there that follow rules like that, and I wish they all did, but these stores would lose money. And so they're not going to do it. And I'm not saying local fish stores, but particularly Petco PetSmart, they're not going to do that. They should, but they won't.
But how would they lose money if they educated their new customers on those two concepts? Long term.
That's a good point. It's a good point, because then if they have success, they're going to be a long-term customer. I'm with you. But I just can't imagine a large-scale retailer like that denying the sale of someone or to someone. I mean, in the world that we live in today, there'd be lawsuits, there'd be this, there'd be that. Like, how dare you tell me what I can and can't buy? I know what I'm doing. I watched a YouTube video once. I mean, I just can't. I can see a local fish store, privately owned fish store, doing that. Like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to be sending these fish to their death. Let's figure this out first, and then we can sell you fish. But maybe I'm wrong, but I just can't see the big box stores doing that.
They already are. So go to a Petco or a PetSmart that has cats, right? They have cat adoption. Ask them, hey, can I adopt a cat? And what are they going to do? They're going to give you a giant questionnaire. They're going to make sure you can house it, that you can pay for it, that you're going to send it to the vet. They're going to do all of these things. Otherwise, you're not getting that cat. You're not getting a dog. All the dog adoption centers do it too. You have to fill out this big, long questionnaire. This is a living thing. They can justify this. It's a living thing. I would put the tanks behind glass, locked, and be like, okay, oh, you want a fish tank? Hey, real fast, you just got to scan this QR code or answer this questionnaire just a little bit before you're allowed to take the fish home. You have to demonstrate that you know what the nitrogen cycle is. And I'm not talking about explaining all the chemistry, but just being aware that you need beneficial bacteria to do this process, right? It could be beginners. And you need to know that fish are prone to disease. Yes, even our fish. And that if you want your display tank to remain healthy, you do need a secondary tank. In the long run, it's going to save you a ton of money. So they're going to sell you that. They could make a quarantine tank kit and just sell that to people as well, and say, hey, you have to check off that you understand these two processes. Once you do, we'll get your fish tank, and away you go.
That's the way it should be. And that would be great. In fact, I believe you have a topic idea for a future episode all about that. Should local fish stores require, where was it? I feel like I just saw it. But should there be rules about, selling fish? That's the way it should be. But, I haven't seen that happen yet. You're right. It is that way with cats and dogs. And my wife is the definition of a crazy cat person. And I love cats too. I just blame it all on her. But you're right. You can't just walk in the door and walk out with a cat, even though you're doing a good thing by adopting a rescue cat or whatever the circumstances are. But why is it that you can do that with an Oscar? Right. You can walk in and walk out with one in a bag, but you can't do that with a cat. I don't think you should be able to do it with either one of them. So I agree with you, but I don't know. For the life of me, I can't imagine people turning away customers at the door. I wish they would, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just
Again, I
too
don't think
jaded.
they're turning them away. I think they're just taking, hey, I need you to take 10 or 15 minutes so that you know what you're getting into. And as long as you understand that, listen, you can't force them to do the right things after they take that aquarium home, but you can at least force them to acknowledge there are two massively important concepts that you must understand. And at least when you left here, you acknowledged in some way, shape, or form that you understood the basics behind making sure you don't get an ammonia spike and making sure you don't introduce sick fish into your aquarium. What you do after that point, you can choose not to quarantine the fish after you leave here. You could choose not to add a product like Fritzheim 7. Fritz is a channel sponsor. We thank them very much, by the way. We love them because they do stuff like this. They've got high quality products like Fritzheim 7, live nitrifying bacteria. It takes 2 seconds to read the label here, put the proper amount in, get your live nitrifying bacteria that's eventually going to adhere to your media, and then you're going to solve yourself or prevent
Make
a
it a
whole
lot
lot
easier.
of problems. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they have to just be like, oh, you know what? Sorry, you're not ready. Just acknowledge these two things and watch this short 5-minute video on these two subjects so you can make them short and make sure they leave with the knowledge.
Well, and to be clear, I'm not trying to argue with you here. I agree with you 100%. I just, educating people, I think should be standard. I mean, what you're talking about right now, I think should be absolutely standard across the board. There's a couple of problems with that. One is, where I'm at, it's not really a problem because I live in a rural area. I've been in my local Petco, which is 45 minutes away. I've been in there more times than I can count, and I was the only customer in the store. And I'm talking about, prime time, time of the day. I was in there, and it was just me and a couple of employees running around. But when you're in an area like you live, a much more densely populated area where there's, PetSmart and Petco's probably within 5 miles of each other. Yeah. They're jam-packed, and I've been in those jam-packed Petco's or PetSmarts and local fish stores too, where there's not enough employees to sit down and be like, okay, listen, let me talk to you about this before you take these home. I don't know. It seems like that's the most difficult part of this. It's so simple to do, yet so hard to implement when you consider the manpower and the time that it would take and all of that. And most customers, including me, in 1993, when there was no social media for me to educate myself on before I even made the purchase, I walked into that fish store and I was like, yeah, I know all that. I know what I'm doing. My friend told me, so it's fine. I know I don't need to be educated in that.
That's fine, sir. Could you answer these 3 short questions about the nitrogen cycle and the quarantine process? Then you should be able to pass this simple exam within the next 5 seconds, and on your way you go with your fish.
That's true. They did not do that.
Here's another idea. I was at a pet store. It's Aquatics Unlimited in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's one of my favorite fish stores. And I saw this giant tower that they had at the register. It had filter media that was already cycled, and they were selling it at a very minimal price. What if, just throwing this out there, Petco and PetSmart, you did something similar for free? Come in. Again, long-term, yeah, it's costing you a nickel, right, for this big biomedia ball, but it is fully cycled. It's got your beneficial bacteria. You give it to them. You say, hey, listen, you just bought an aquarium. That is awesome. Are you planning to set it up today? Yes, I'm planning to set it up today. Are you planning to put fish in it soon? I'd like to. Okay, here's what I need you to do. Go set up your aquarium. I'm going to give you this bag, right? Almost like a fish. It'd just be a fish bag. You need to put this in your filter media, and then you can come back and we could stock your tank very, very lightly, but this will provide the beneficial bacteria so the fish waste don't become toxic to the fish. That's it. It's a 2-second thing. I'm giving it to you for free. Really important that you put this in your aquarium. Tell me that would keep a whole lot of people a lot more successful.
There's no doubt. It absolutely would. I did kind of a modified version of that when I had my store. And it was funny. I had this hilarious reaction from a customer one day. It was on a Saturday, and a customer that was a regular customer, a friend of the shop, came in, and he was like, "Hey, could you do me a favor? Could you squeeze out one of your sponge filters? I ran all of my tanks with sponge filters. Can you squeeze one out into a bag and let me take that nasty bag home with me?" Of course. And because he was starting up a new tank and he just wanted to dump that into his tank. So I did that. I took a sponge filter, put it in the bag, squeezed it out, and it was the brownest, nastiest thing, and handed it to him. And he walked out the store with it. And there was another customer in there like, "What is that? Why would you do that?"
You just paid $100 for poop water.
Yeah. I mean, I did not charge him for it, but like the look on this guy's face was like, that's the most absurd. Why would somebody buy diarrhea water? Like, what is that? And I had to explain to him exactly what it was. And the cool thing is he was like, all right, well, I didn't sell aquariums. So he was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to get my whole tank set up. Can I come back and get one of those too? I'm like, I've got 70 sponge filters in here. I can do that all day long. And that's no problem. There was one particular customer that I had a 55 gallon, and this was a regular customer. I just gave him one of the sponge filters out of there. This is a guy that had spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Yeah. I had a bunch of extra sponge filters, so I took a new one, put it in the tank, took one of the old seasoned ones in there, and just handed it off to him and let him take it. And I'm not trying to act like I was some kind of a hero. My store failed, but I don't think I'm an anomaly either. I think there's a lot of mom and pop stores that would do that, but I don't see Petco doing that. I mean, they're capable of it, but I love the idea of just selling seeded media though. I think that's genius.
Yeah. And again, it's been done. I just think you're dealing with the two largest retailers in the business. They are the ones that are, when you talk about most people leaving the hobby after 6 months, almost all of those people are probably Petco and PetSmart customers. And I bet the vast majority don't really have a solid local fish store to go to, or they're just not aware of it, or they don't visit them because the Petcos and PetSmarts are more convenient, maybe a little bit cheaper sometimes. They certainly would have more hard goods. So yeah, I think it has to start there.
I don't disagree. I mean, it always starts at the fish store. I mean, the fish store is the place where it will set up the customer for success, the fish keeper for success. And that is, it has to be if somebody quits the hobby in the first year, and it's not that they suffered some kind of, injury or had this life-changing event, but just fish keeping related stuff that gets people to bail in that first year. It is not knowing what to do in that scenario where the water turns gray, the fish are suffocating. What do I do? The normal reaction is always, let me clean it out real quick and get everything all spotless. And then that just delays the problem by a few weeks. But that has to be the number one thing that eliminates people from this. And it all starts with the fish stores. And I think it's even more critical today because Lisa and I have a running joke in our household where we'll make the joke, yeah, I watched a YouTube video, so I'm an expert now. Whatever it is that we're talking about, whether it's refinishing my floors or whatever, it's like, yeah, I watched a video the other day, so I know what I'm talking about now. I think that happens. I did that, even though I wasn't watching videos. I thought I knew what I was talking about in 1993. But let me tell you what I did. I bought 2 aquariums at the same time with everything, including the under gravel filters, to assemble them, and fish. I had to put everything together really fast and get the tanks set up because I had fish sitting there in bags and I needed to get them out. I did that. I did what we're talking about. Fortunately for me, I loved the hobby so much that I was going to figure this out. And I did. I know your story is similar. We had to figure this thing out, but I think that the overwhelming majority just get frustrated and they're like, well, I feel bad because it's not a money thing. It's more, I'm bringing these lives into my household and I'm killing them. I feel bad about it. I'm out. I can't take it anymore. And it's sad.
And there are some things that are just out of our control. I mean, usually, again, when people are getting into fish, they're like, well, we don't want to have to care for a dog. We don't want to have to care for a cat. Those are going to be too much work. So we're just going to set up a fish tank that's kind of like a decoration. It's going to have fish. They're going to swim around. We feed them twice a day, and that's it.
Yep.
And so, again, a lot of that falls on the education for the people who are selling the setups to the new customer. Hey, listen, what are you doing with this fish tank? You do understand it's going to take you, maybe a half hour to 45 minutes every single week to maintain the aquarium, to do water changes, to ensure that your fish are healthy, scrape a little bit of algae. Have you thought about what you're going to do when you want to take a vacation for a week? Have you thought about what you want to do when your kids who want this tank right now are no longer interested in it after a month? Are you going to be the one that's going to care for this tank? Because we see a lot of customers come back, and unfortunately, once you buy all this stuff, it's nearly worthless to try to resell it, especially like the kit tanks. I mean, I see it all the time. I like to go on Facebook Marketplace just to, I don't know, more for boredom than anything else. I'm like, oh, eventually it starts filling you with the things that you search for or that you start clicking on. And like you see these aquariums, and it's sad. You see, hey, 75-gallon tank, full setup for $150. And you're like, I know that setup, stand, tank, the filters, the lights, the lids, you were into that thing for $1,000, and now you see the price reduction, right? $700, been sitting there for 6 months. $500, been sitting there for 6 months. $250, been sitting there for 3 months. $150, and finally, someone's like, oh yeah, I'll take that for $150. But the stuff's worthless when it's worse than a car, right? At least a car, the depreciation is slow. Used tanks, it's immediately worthless when it's used.
Well, and it's not only that, but it's also when people make that decision that they're out, they want out right now. And this thing has taken up a lot of space in our house. So whatever it is I can get for it, I'm happy with. In fact, I did a live stream recently where I set a budget, and on the live stream, I was like, let's shop and let's put together, I think I set the budget to $1,000. Let's put together a tank. And I did the same thing. I went on Facebook Marketplace, and there were so many examples like that where, it was the complete setup. It was obvious somebody was into this, and then they just decided, that's it, I'm out. And they just wanted to get it out of their house. Pennies on the dollar practically. And that's great if you're a hardcore fish keeper like we are and you need something like that. But yeah, people decide they want out, they get out fast. And I know you've seen this too, and this is the one that's really sad to me. I've seen it more times than I can count. It's not just those people in that first year. The turnover is a big problem, and I think that we're on the right track to try to correct that problem. But there's also people that have been in this hobby for a while, and they've gotten to that point where they have 7 or 8 or 9 tanks, and the next day, gone. A great example of this, a personal friend of mine, I'm sure you've probably met him too. There's a guy on YouTube. His name's Scott McLaughlin. His YouTube channel was called King and Queen's Cichlids. It was Scott and his wife Liz, and they were just like a prominent member in this community online. And also he was an avid fish keeper, a very, very talented fish keeper. And just out of nowhere one day, that's it. I'm out. I'm gone. He got rid of all of his stuff. He did videos about people coming to get his stuff, and he just, poof, he was gone. And I think that I've been close to that before, where it's just like, you know what? I mean, I've put myself in this position here where it's become too much for me to handle. And that's always really sad to see. I think I'm at a place I'm about to be 51. I'll never be without an aquarium ever again, as long as I live. But there's been times where it's been overwhelming, and I've put myself here. I don't know that we can stop that, but that's another thing going on.
Yeah, well, and again, there is not much you can do when somebody goes from that 1 to 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 tanks. It's like, whoa, what did I just do to myself? Because it's exciting. Every time
Yep.
you set that new tank up, you got the new fish, the new setup. It's exciting until it gets common.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that happens, well, I either need a new tank, but then eventually at some point you run to a situation where it's like, I'm spending a lot of time maintaining all these aquariums. And now, and we see this all the time. You and I see this. It is like clockwork. And the clockwork is the minute the first nice week hits in April, YouTube fish keeping is done. And I mean, you talked about it falling off a cliff, which it did. I remember in 2020 looking at Joanna and be like, we got to start kicking out 5 videos a week. She looked at me like I was insane. She's like, why would you do that in the middle of this shutdown? I'm like, trust me. And we did. And go back to the YouTube channel and see, we were kicking out videos every other day between the 2 channels. And then right around 2022, I was like, we need to scale way back. Let's each just do like 1, maybe 2 a week at the most. She's like, okay. And it fell off a cliff. Well, the other thing that we know, and you and I talk about it, even when it feeds into, okay, what subjects are we covering? What time of the year? Summertime, April, it falls off a cliff because guess what? People want to be outside. They want to do picnics and they want to go on vacation. They want to play, the kids have sports going on and there's so much more to do. And I'm the same exact way. So I want to be very clear. When those first nice days hit, I want to be on my motorcycle. Yesterday I rode I could have been down here looking at my fish. I was outside for 3.5, 4 hours on my motorcycle. That's what I wanted to do. We've got season tickets to a local minor league baseball team. And when they're in town, that is where we go. All right. So we might be there 4 nights a week. Well, what does that all mean? When all that stuff is happening, this all takes a back seat. Now my fish are still healthy. And again, Eli is maintaining the tanks. But if I had to do it, no way in the summertime I'm maintaining all these aquariums. I would be in such a horrible mood. You wouldn't want to be around me. If I'm stuck down here on a Saturday for 8 hours cleaning tanks when I could be on my motorcycle or could be doing all kinds of other things, not to mention I live in a townhome. I don't have yard work to do. I don't have to cut the lawn, pull the weeds. That's handled. If I had all that to do plus cleaning, all my weekends would be shot for the summer. No thanks. I wouldn't do it. I would scale so far back. It would just be a completely different situation.
Yeah. And, there's also work. And we both have jobs, of course. Now I have the freedom of being self-employed. I work from home, and that's great. And with aquariums being my job, it's kind of this is part of the deal is taking care of these tanks. But you mentioned it when the weather turns in the spring, for me, I automatically lose an entire day every week to yard work. We live on 5 acres and whether it's walking around picking up sticks, I was walking my dog this morning and found an 8-foot, like 12-inch wide tree branch that fell off of one of my trees. And now I got to go get the chainsaw and cut that up. And, that could have happened in the wintertime too, but, an entire day for me is cleaning up my yard, cutting the grass, doing all of that kind of stuff. And even though this is my job, the tanks still suffer for it. Yeah. I mean, there's only so many hours of the day. And now I'm fortunate in that so many of my tanks are really big and they don't require, meticulous weekly maintenance. I can go a couple of weeks on them. But it is a problem. I mean, I'll be overwhelmed and then I'm like, oh man, and I haven't done water changes. I need to get out there and do that. And it's a several hour process because these are, if I do a 50% water change in here, that's 180 gallons. It takes a long time to do that. And it's, I'm actually quite looking forward to having an employee take over. We had our daughter here in the summer. She graduated college and she was waiting to go to the next step in her life. You've talked to her. You gave her advice. She was working for us and our tanks have never been so clean and looked so good when she was doing that. But it can get absolutely overwhelming and it gets to be too much. And sometimes people like Scott McLaughlin, just out of nowhere, they're just like, you know what? I'm going to move on to other things that don't overwhelm my life like this. But, that was a long tangent that I went on there, and it's actually not really to do with the topic, the original topic, which is that first 2 year turnover. Other than being, mom is at Petco picking up dog or cat food, and little Jimmy, why is it always Jimmy? But little guy or little girl says, "Mommy, I want one of those," and they pick up a tank on impulse. Other than that, what are some other things that can bring people in waves into this hobby and start this whole process?
I still go back to community, and I think this is where the local fish store could, if they were doing it right, they could really enhance fish keeping. Fish keeping, to me, we said this at the outset, it is, fish keeping, but there's a community aspect. Imagine you go to a local fish store where they have little meetings. I know the clubs do this, but I actually think the local fish store is much more, it's better suited for this than a club is. A club's got to rent space. They got to make a local fish store. Hey, we're open from this time to this time. And once a week or a couple times a month, or maybe it's just once a month, we're going to meet. We're going to advertise it on our social media. Our customers that come in, hey, come on in. We're going to do a little demo, and then we're going to have pizza. Come on in. We're going to do a thing. It's $5 a person, and we're also going to have a sale 15% off all of our live goods or live fish, or 15% off our fish food. And you could I know a lot of places don't have the square footage for this, but again, how are you using your square footage? Are you getting people to get into the hobby? Because once you build community, it becomes a lot more. Do you have an emotional connection now, not just to the fish in your tank, but to the entire community who share your hobby? You're more likely to stay in that hobby for a lot longer. I've found that to be true because we're part of the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association and the Greenwater Aquarius Society, and just being able to meet with them once a month, it re-energizes you every single time you do it.
It definitely does. Every time I've been to like club meetings or even just visit a fish store, it's like I can't wait to get back and just mess with my tanks and try new things and all of this kind of stuff. It's definitely true. And there's absolutely no doubt. Forget about the social media part of it, which is how I make my living. The people is why I do it. And I know how weird that sounds, but first of all, for me, it's something that I can share with my wife, and it's amazing. And we did this way before we were involved in social media, and that's great. It's something that, we share together, but the community aspect, I agree, is huge. But I think that there's some things that have happened in the past that have brought more people to this community, which is kind of what I was getting at before. And that's movies and television shows. In fact, today, when you and I were talking before I pushed record, I said, well, it'd be nice if they came out with another Nemo movie or something, because our industry is, it's summertime, like you were talking about. It's the summer doldrums. It's not summer yet, but it's the summer doldrums in our industry. Mm-hmm. Every single time there's been a Nemo movie, this hobby has exploded. Not just the saltwater side, which Nemo was, but and then also the show tanked. The show tanked. Mm-hmm. There are so many people that keep aquariums right now that did not before they were exposed to it on Animal Planet. So, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think it's a really good thing. I think that a lot of our industry has to thank Brett Raymer for what that show did, the impact that they had. But obviously there's those examples, and then there is the pandemic, people being trapped and wanting to get into something that brings those waves in. And unfortunately, when those big waves come in, as good as it is, if you're somebody that's in the industry, that just means that it's going to be a big crash when things go back down to normal after the hype wears off from the Nemo movie or whatever it is. But those things definitely bring a lot of people in. And dare I say, more than, the little one being in the fish store saying, "Mommy, I want that."
Yeah. Imagine this. A new movie comes out about an animated Betta, and all of the animated Betta's friends, the community fish in the tank, and they've got to get, I don't know, I know what the movie plot's going to be. I'm not really a writer, but you put a freshwater animated feature, but it's done in a way where it is factually correct. Like you're not putting like a Betta in with an Oscar and it's, you know, a 4-gallon tank. It's like you've got this big ecosystem. How cool would that be?
I mean, it would be amazing. And if you think about the plot of Nemo, I mean, Nemo wasn't trying to teach anybody Finding Nemo, wasn't trying to teach anybody the science behind an aquarium, but it was trying to teach the ethics of an aquarium. The little girl with the braces shaking the fish in the bag, and the, you know, the fish being stolen from its home, and all of the, you know, it was trying to teach the kind of moral side of it. But there was still a lot of fish killed from as a result from that. But no, I'm with you. Maybe we should start working on that. That could be the next big hit for Pixar, is the, you know, the story of a Betta, whatever you want to call it.
Bob the Betta. Bob the Betta's Adventures.
I like it. Go ahead.
We just gave somebody a great idea. I'm not going to claim it. If you want to take it, run with it, and kick off the next great thing in fish keeping, I will be happy to benefit from it in some tangential way, and we'll be okay.
We will benefit from it. We might not be monetarily from the studios, but we'll benefit from it as far as the way we make our living. But, you know, I make my living. You have better things to do than making your living from fish keeping. You know what I'm saying. Jason has a big boy job where this is what I do for a living. But anyway, I wish that there was something that we could do. You know, like I said, if we could just keep 5% of those people that bail out. Again, I'm not trying to toot my horn here, but it's why it's kind of like my mission in this industry. It's why my website is called keepfishkeeping.com. I'm trying to keep people in it. I mean, the hard part is all of the examples that we've talked about here today. I mean, how can we make those things industry standards? I don't know if we can. We can just do the best that we can and hope that it sticks.
Well, our job being on social media is to highlight those companies who are doing it correctly. I mean, we've called out companies when their packaging was misleading or their statements were misleading. But then at the same time, when you see somebody doing something the right way, you call that out as well. And you promote that, like, hey, here's a company that's quarantining their fish for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is. Or here's a fish store that is educating its customers and taking the time to do that, or running seminars on a weekly or biweekly or monthly basis. So as you see those things, as you see that positivity, you got to point that out, because then as those companies benefit at the expense of companies who aren't doing that, either those companies who aren't doing it go out of business, which I'm perfectly fine with, or they change so that they too are meeting that new industry standard, and then everybody benefits.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only way we're able to implement change is by doing exactly what we're doing. Yeah. I mean, whether it's episodes like this or, like you said, calling out the ones that are doing it right or calling out the ones that aren't. And there's a lot of both sides of that out there right now. But, you know, we do what we can do. We try to educate, and we just hope for the best. Nobody does everything right. And my whole thing with my channel has always been learn from my mistakes, because that's how I learned. I make a mistake and then I'm like, oops. And then I fix the problem, and I'll never forget now why it was that I made that mistake. But it scares me that we live in such an instant gratification world. People are so quick to move on and, you know, move on to other things. I don't have time to mess around learning how, you know, nitrite transitions to nitrate. No, I ain't got time for all that. I just want to do stuff that's easy, and, you know, we'll see. But anyway, I'm not trying to turn it into a doom and gloom. I think that, you know, for our hobby to continue innovating and continue growing and to see new things and all of this, we need that 5% to stick around, on top of the people that are already sticking around, so that we can see this industry grow. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to talk to somebody who's a real industry professional, not somebody like me. I'd love to know, you take the pandemic out of it. because that was an anomaly that, whatever. It seems to me like our hobby, the industry, it just stays at like a level. Yeah. It never jumps up. It just kind of stays level because people are out and new people are in. If we could just get 5% of them to stay in, we'd be changing an industry.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's something that we can do, just the two of us.
No, and it's not. And that's everybody who's here watching. You all have a voice as well, and you all vote with your money. And so when you see companies doing things the right way, you encourage that by spending your money at those places, even if it costs a little bit more, because it does cost more money to do things the right way.
Oh, yeah.
You vote with your dollars. If you've got Facebook or Instagram and you want to point out that somebody, hey, man, I went this place and they really knocked it out of the park. The employees were super knowledgeable. They took time to teach me about certain things, whether it's a fish, a certain type of fish and how to keep those together, or a filter type. They're running these meetings at once a month, or they have these little workshops, whatever it is. You point that stuff out so that becomes the standard.
Yeah. And you know what? It has to be said. If you can do those kind of things online too, without ever leaving your house. But I would just beg you, there is another thing. It surprises me that we're 51 minutes into this and I'm just now bringing this up, but social media can drive a lot of people away from this hobby too.
Yeah.
And so I would ask people, be careful the way you word things. I've seen so many posts like on Facebook. Recently I saw somebody posted something and it was just an abomination. It was just terrible. And I saw so many people, their intentions were in the right place to try to help this person, but the way they did it came across as if they were the biggest jerks and they were just horrible people. And nothing will get somebody to say, you know what, forget all this. I'm out of here. There's a way that we can word our advice to not sound like we're condescending jerks talking down to these people like we know everything. It's really difficult because people can have the best intentions in the world, but still come across as if they're ridiculing and, making fun of these people.
And the worst part about it is
tough.
They would never talk that way to a person face to face.
No.
Right? Everybody's a tough guy behind a keyboard. Everybody's got a plan. As Mike Tyson once said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
That's right.
But, it's sad because you see the keyboard warriors on Facebook and I'm like, really? Was that necessary? You got someone, and I hate when a post, like the person who posted originally, has to preface it, please be gentle. I'm a new fish keeper. And that doesn't,
right.
It's like, eventually start scrolling down and you watch this comments section devolve into, well, you shouldn't be keeping fish unless you, like, did you not read new fish keeper? They're here asking a question. Isn't that what a new fish keeper is supposed to do? Like, how are they supposed to gain information if they can't ask a question? So, yeah, I do think that there is, what's the percentage of people out there who are fish keepers, keyboard warrior, Facebook experts who actually contribute to driving people out of the hobby, who would have been perfectly successful had they just had some good advice presented in a way that was encouraging.
Just a little bit of tact. Just be tactful in the way that you're doing it. Because again, that person is on the razor's edge. Yeah. When that's the person that puts in there, I'm brand new, please go easy on me, which I agree. They shouldn't have to do that. But, they're on the razor's edge. And what the response that they get to that social media post could be the thing that makes or breaks this for them. Mm-hmm. And, the way you address that is, but the thing is, what I was getting at before is I have seen a lot of people that are trying to do the right thing. And I don't mean the fish keeper that puts up the original post. I mean people who respond and they're trying to be helpful, but they just come across in a way that makes them sound like a jerk and a know-it-all. There's nothing I can't stand more than a fish snob. So I am a little biased here, but they come across as that snobby know-it-all. Whereas what we need to do is just be a little nicer.
Yeah.
I can't use it because out of respect for you, but just be nice. That's an easy movie quote for you. I was going to go the whole way and say everything, but be nice. is all you have to do. I'm going to ask you when we're done recording what movie that's from, Jason. And if you don't know, I'm going to be very disappointed. Shouldn't have to say any more than be nice. But anyway, be nice in the way you do it. You might be able to help that person through the problem and they stay and they become part of that 5%, or you might piss them off and they just bail.
Yeah.
So there you go. But anyway, anything else you want to add in here before we?
I think that's a great way to end it. I do. I think when it comes to the bottom line is treat people with respect, be encouraging, and you're going to wind up actually contributing to somebody enjoying the hobby a lot more.
And remember, you were where they are. At some point in your fish keeping journey, you were there. And so talk to that person the way you would have hoped somebody would have talked to you like that back in the day.
Great advice. Great advice. Everybody, thank you again. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate your time. We're going to be back same bat time, same bat channel next week. Have a great week, everybody.
What movie's that from? See you next week, folks.